This is Partner Relationship Management, the ultimate channel sales podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Ultimate Channel Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Bird. The success of a company is often reliant on its sales team. So aligning your channel sales team with your direct sales team can be a great way to maximize your business's potential. This episode will provide an overview on how to align the two. In addition to tips and techniques to help you navigate this tricky situation, we'll cover topics such as the importance of communication and collaboration between the two teams, creating a unified sales strategy, and the benefits of having a cohesive sales effort. Our guest today has an impressive background in building channel partner programs. He's been helping high-tech companies succeed in their partner programs for almost 2 decades. Together with his team as the Vice President of Partner Strategy and Programs at DocuSign, he focused on creating programs to help resellers, ISVs, and SIs do more business with DocuSign, and they built that program from the ground up in just 5 years. Before that, he was the Vice President at IDC, a leading global channels and alliance research firm, and he also ran the partner program at Microsoft Canada. Today, he's the principal at Aligned Partner, a consultancy providing assessments and advisory services around partner programs and channel alliance strategy. He's with us now to talk about how to align channel sales and your direct sales. Please welcome Darren Bibby. Darren, it's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
So maybe you can give us a little bit of your background, some highlights of your career in the channel space so far.
Yeah, for sure. I think what's interesting about my background, and others can say it too, but I've had kind of 3 very interesting perspectives on the channel world. I've been a partner, so I get that perspective when you want to work with a Microsoft, who was in my case, or another vendor, and what you're trying to get out of them in that relationship. I've been a software vendor, both with Microsoft Canada, and then more recently with DocuSign. So I got the chance to actually build out the partner program there and get that perspective. And for 10 years at IDC, I studied partner programs and partner strategies. And really there, I got a sense of, what are the best practices? What are the standard practices in the industry around programs, strategy, and all those sorts of things. And now I'm trying to pull it all together with my own little company here, Aligned Partner. And I've been working with some software companies on, improving their partner programs. I don't think anyone's really perfected it. There's always work to do, right? No one ever have you ever talked to someone and said, no, we got everything done. We don't need to work on it anymore. We're all happy. We love our portal. We're all done. Everybody's got something to work on in partner programs. So I'm trying to add my value to some companies in this consulting capacity.
So that's interesting. You went from Microsoft to IDC and then to DocuSign. So how was that transition from going, from an analyst perspective to actually boots on the ground? Did it help you at DocuSign, your time at IDC?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I mean, for anything that we were trying to do, I had a dozen ideas or more of how other companies had done it. So that was the great part. The thing that was harder, of course, is at IDC, and all we did all day was talk to partners, see how they were using the partner programs and getting along with their vendors. We were talking to the vendors all the time and getting their insights. But it was always a little bit higher level than what I would need at DocuSign. At DocuSign, I needed to roll up the sleeves and build stuff that worked. And I laugh that it'd often be sort of like Elon Musk did during the Model 3 days when they couldn't get things going. I'd sleep on the floor beside the machine that wasn't working. That was sort of my analogy there, because you had to get that going. Which field in Salesforce would make this process happen? And so it was a lot more sleeves rolled up kind of work once I got going.
So let's get into today's discussion, and really start with the kind of importance from a partner strategy and program perspective. So at a basic level, what role does a vendor's partner strategy and program play in the bigger conversation of getting alignment within 2 sales teams?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I think there's just such an importance to have a partner strategy and programs team. And there may be lots of different connotations of what that means to different vendors. Sometimes it's a bit more operational, sometimes a bit more on the strategy side. But I ended up kind of being the number two to the channel chief, and almost a chief of staff in some ways. But he was too busy trying to make the number. He was too busy trying to meet our biggest partners and solve those situations. My goal was to make it easier for everybody to do business. That meant easier for the partners to do business, easier for our partner account managers to do business, and the field teams, the sellers. That's what we're here to talk about today, right? Like, how could we make it just more smooth for everyone to do business? And I kind of think of, we had a very bumpy dirt road in the beginning when I got there. A partner, a seller, a PAM could get down that road, whatever process it was, but it wasn't nice. We needed to make, 4-lane highway smooth, signs on the road that said, here's how you do it, here's how fast you should go. And you just get a lot more throughput when you think that way. So I was there, my team was there to make things smoother and for everyone to do their business that they needed to get done with DocuSign on the partner side easier. That was the point.
You bring up an interesting topic, this idea of smooth operations. So, what are some of the most important aspects, if you're giving some thought to building a program and putting your strategy together, that are really going to affect that kind of smooth partner operations and really help to, get you pointed in the right direction for alignment within these direct and channel teams?
Sure. So first of all, I think if you've got someone whose job it is to make it smoother, that helps. So I've said the importance of this type of team. And I think it's important that that person in the beginning and then that team over time is a part of the partner organization. It's a different thing to have a matrix structure and you're hoping someone over in sales ops has your best interests in mind. But to have a driver right beside the channel chief, I think that's really, really important. And then the mantra of, I call it programmatization. I don't even think it's a word. I don't care. I'll patent it. But to have that mindset of, someone comes to you with a one-off situation and you've got to think, could we make that into some kind of program, process, policy? And that's kind of the start of it, is just that mindset of we're not going to accept one-offs. Okay, maybe if we're partnering with the biggest companies in the world, we'll do something special. But for the most part, the default has to be, that standard program. And so you're always thinking about that programmatization. It would be quicker to just solve in the moment. It would be quicker to solve the one-off and move on. But you've got to think, this person's come to me with this one-off issue. Is this going to happen again? Yes. Start thinking about how to make that into some kind of program, process, policy. And the next big one too then is to document it. It's not real until it's documented. That was a big one too. I have seen some funny stuff at companies. I mean, the documentation sometimes is, well, hey, I took a screenshot of a Slack message I got that said this was the way we were supposed to do something. Okay, that's not quite good enough.
No, not at all. Not at all. And is there kind of any systems that you would put in place to have these kind of processes shared between the team? Something that maybe could improve or make communication between a direct team and a partner team more efficient?
Yeah, sure. So jumping to that piece of like how sellers work with the partner organization and systems. Certainly your CRM has to be well architected. It has to be clean enough. I mean, there's a lot of technical debt on some of these things, kind of old fields, old things that someone 5 years ago had a great idea for something. So the cleaner and simpler that CRM is, and the partner record and the opportunity record mapping to the partner and the customer and everything, the smoother that is, the better. So there's a system, CRM. Just how you document that. So there's some really nice tools out there that are on top of the CRM or within it to kind of tell you how to do a process, right? Oh, you've never done a resell deal before, step one, step two. We didn't have all that figured out, but even just having step-by-step instructions in a Google Doc, that was very, very important. Obviously, the portal and how a partner sees everything. So all of those systems are more important than ever. But what I would say is you can't automate some of these things if the process isn't there, the program, you can't automate one-off things. So there's almost a maturity there to make sure you've really thought through the programmatization of these different elements, and document it, and then get it automated.
So what's the effect if you've got kind of lack of documentation, you have misalignment between direct and channel sellers, really a poorly architected partner program, and dealing with these one-offs all the time? What kind of effect does that potentially have on an organization?
Well, sure. I think it's maddening when you start watching it happen, and it can be demoralizing when when everything you do is hard and it's not documented. I mean, when it is documented, when that's easy to find, things work smoothly. People are more upbeat. They're spending way less time on figuring out how to do something. They just go do the thing they need to do. So I think that's certainly a big one. It's just the whole organization is walking more upright. They're proud of the job they're doing. They're not spending all this time trying to solve things. And I think it's a nicer culture to work in when things work more smoothly.
So as we get kind of into more the tactical side of things on implementing this, getting teams to work together, never mind selling teams like partner teams and your direct team, that can be a bit of a difficult task. So generally speaking, and kind of in a nutshell, tell us why this conflict, what this conflict is all about and what it tends to involve.
Well, so we're talking about two different departments plus partners on the other side. So you've got your sales org, typically somewhat separated, even if it's under the same leader and a CRO, and your partner org. And then you've got the partners on the outside. And you've got this situation where leadership can say to anyone internally, jump, and they'll say, how high? I'm ready to go. And if you say jump to a partner, they'll say, well, let me think about it. What's in it for me? And they evaluate it, and they've got other vendors and the like. So that starts to set up some of what's going on. You've got these three different stakeholders. Obviously, sellers are coin driven. They do what they're paid to do. It's there may not be a bigger truth in the world to that. And so even if they will make a tiny bit more money in a scenario, they will go for that, even to the detriment of a partnership that has taken 5 or 7 years to build. We've got that saying that I love, that trust is built in drops, is earned in drops, and lost in buckets. So that seller can make an extra $100, and they'll throw a partner under the bus and kill that relationship. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. And from my programs and strategy team, I thought, what could I do? What could we do to make this better? And so that's what I've got some ideas, and hopefully can help some of the listeners on how to fix some of those things.
So what are some of those top tips that you have to start getting alignment or maintain alignment and ensure kind of both teams are working collaboratively towards, a common company goal?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe this is the difference between my previous role, which was higher level, and then now I've actually rolled up my sleeves and gone through it. Let me give you some of those tactical tips. I've got about 6 or 7 here. First of all, nothing is more important than if you can get your CEO and your CRO in alignment with the partner strategy, right? That's not always the case. But none of the rest of these tactical ideas will ever amount to the CEO and the CRO all being in alignment with how they go to market with partners. Typically, most companies, there's some amount of friction in there. So the first thing that I would suggest to anyone who wants to get their partner organization more in alignment with the sales organization, number one is just a sort of a steady stream of consistent messaging to them about why it makes sense for them to work with partners. So they need to keep hearing it for it to hit home. Otherwise, they're not going to listen, and they'll have, they'll upset a partner in the process, or, throw them under the bus or something. So first thing I'd say to the partner organization, and often to that strategy and programs group, is come up with your talk track on working with partners and get everyone in that BD or partner org to know it and start repeating it. And so how do you come up with that talk track? There's some really great statements you can make, and you should make sure they work at your company, but hey seller, did you know the majority of the President's Club AEs got there by working with partners? Okay, there's a comment that just models the behavior to say, hey, look, our best sellers are at President's Club got there because they worked with partners more than they didn't, for instance, right? You can talk about the fact that did you know that deals with partners are 2.5 times the size of your average deal size? So there's some sound bites you can go and collect. That's a bit of a gut feel number, or you could say the average deals close in half the time. Go find that analytics person at your company, maybe in sales ops or whatever, and go have a look at the deals because you'll probably find some really interesting statistics and sound bites that you can use on and on. One of the places I did this is when new employees came on board. Every month in Seattle, we had, oh God, it was 100+ people every month. It was incredible the amount of hiring we used to do when I was at DocuSign, no longer there, of course. But I'd go up and I'd tell this story of the partner organization and how we work with partners. So that was kind of the first time I would get them. And a lot of them may have come from a place where they never worked with partners. And that was often the case, I found. So get them early, get them, get that message consistently out there, and let them know that they can be, the GM, the CEO of their territory. You pick the accounts that you want to go to alone, get the rest of your quota with these partners. So there's some nice sound bites there. So number one is get your messaging together and get everyone sort of on that same talk track.
So are there other things that they can do? Does the role of sales enablement, and the collateral, everything that we're providing to these teams, does that play a big role in achieving good alignment? I completely agree with the messaging. I'm wondering how much does the training and the enablement have an effect?
So that's an interesting one. I went into the whole thing saying, hey, I'll just set up a webinar internal. The sales enablement team kind of had a process for doing that. I'll get an hour and I'll tell them everything they need to know about working with our partner group. And it was okay, but it was just okay. What you realized was that they are so busy, they don't really think about working with partners until they actually have a deal. So on that 1 hour call, maybe I had a handful of the, 10%, 20% of the group who was dealing with a partner deal at that time, who didn't already know how to do that deal, who needed the help. Everyone else was like, oh gosh, another webinar. And so what the real answer became was a little bit more of a just in time and a in the right place kind of training and enablement. So we were able to take some advantage of the technology and have the battle cards and the information about the key partners right beside them in the CRM, right? So we would always refer to it. You can go and here's the top information, and we made each of the partner account managers responsible for that information to make sure it was up to date. So having the information right in the place they work every day, that was super helpful. The other enablement was just quick guides on, how to work with a reseller, how to do a referral deal, how to do an ISV type of deal. So as quick as we could, kind of wizards or step by step to make that easy. And one of the other things was I think all companies need this one place. There's usually somewhere that the enablement team has set up to say, go here for product training, go here for whatever to sellers. There's got to be a place on how to work with partners. And the mistake people make from the partner organization is they fill it and they put all sorts of stuff in there. Keep it simple. How to do a reseller deal, how to do a referral, how to, do whatever, and then how to get in touch with us. And that's the other one on enablement. Honestly, a really dumb and simple one, but we had the resources to do it, was just a Slack channel that if you had any question about how to do business with a partner, fire us a question, and we had someone monitoring at all times, and they'd get back to them right away. Half the time they could answer it. Half the time they'd said, got your question. We're going to dig that up for you, and we'll get right back to you. Make it easy for them. The North Star has to be make it easy for partners, make it easy for PAMs, make it easy for sellers to do business. So we thought that through.
That's a mantra I've always had, make it easy for people to do business with you, and they usually will.
Absolutely.
Now, I've worked on both sides of the channel very much like you. And, when I was building and managing channel, one of my partners was CDW, and I was in Chicago all the time and doing floor walks. And one of the things that I saw as far as, one of the strategies implemented was all about incentives. So what role, and do you think it works, do incentives play in motivating the channel team and the direct team? Is it effective? Is there, anything that you've seen in the past that helps bring that more into alignment when you've got
Yeah.
something, incentivizing behaviors?
Sure. So we didn't really spend a lot of time on the sort of spiffs and incentives in that, hey, go sell a partner deal and you'll get this or that kind of one time thing. The major thing that we worked on was a compensation neutrality plan. That was critical. So if you can imagine that $100 deal comes to a sales rep, and it's through a reseller. And they realize, oh, wait a second, I'm only getting the net of this deal because we have to pay a reseller. But if I did that deal on my own, I'd get the whole $100. I'm ready to throw the partner under the bus. Like, don't even ask me twice. I'm ready to throw. So we had to come up with, and it took a long time. It took a lot of research of other companies. It took a lot of working with the finance group to implement a comp neutrality program. But what that eventually meant was that they were incentivized. The direct reps were incentivized pretty much the same. Take it direct, you get your $100, take it through a reseller. We're going to make sure your quota is representing that $100. So we were able to put that in, and that made a massive difference. It really did, because otherwise they were just always worried about this haircut. The way things were going before, and a lot of the way other companies work is they have to give up that discount to the partner, and they don't see it as their quota. So that was a big one. That was the major incentive we worked on.
That's a great idea. I like that idea of, there's no more infighting between, hey, if I take it direct, then I get X number of dollars. If I put it through a partner, I'll take less. So if it's the same, regardless of what channel you put it through, then I think
it changed their whole mentality. It really did. They were more open to working with partners. They were more open to it. That was a massive deal for us.
So you had mentioned earlier this concept of trust. So do you think vendors sometimes have trouble trusting their partners, and vice versa? What about the partners? Do you think partners have trouble trusting their vendors?
Well, sure, all the time. I mean, we're all only human. I think there are times when a partner does enough of their business with a vendor that the trust is there, and it's pretty rock solid. There are other times where a partner is doing a third of their business with the vendor that we're talking about, a third with another vendor, and a third with another, and they're all competitors. All of a sudden, the vendor has to start worrying. They have to say, well, hang on, if I'm bringing them a deal, or we're talking about a deal, are they just going to their other vendor and that? So certainly there are lots of scenarios where you have to question the trust. But as we all know, in relationships and partnerships, it's never going to work if there's not a sufficient amount of trust. Absolutely.
So if we kind of dig in a little bit, you talk about making it easy, not only working between teams, but then also having, partner sales teams easier to work with in general. Do you think of anything that vendors can do to make it easier for partners to work with them?
Oh, so yeah. So what can you do to make it easier for your partners to work with the direct team? Yeah, that whole partner field linkage is important, and I think it's sort of on my aligned partner journey map. My checklist of things that you need to think about is, how are you making it easy for those partner sellers to work with your direct sellers? There's a few things that we did. We talked about systems, having some transparency that if you are the partner of record on a deal, we're sharing that with you on the portal. There was actually an ability to chat back and forth with the sales rep on the portal and make that introduction. But it typically comes down to those human relationships that we get the partner sales rep in touch. I keep saying back in the day, what we did was when I was at DocuSign, we got the sales rep of the partner with the sales rep very quickly. And it was typically the partner account manager who would make that work. But another thing that I was going to point out is we did have a partner service advisor team that would handle any of those situations where if a partner didn't have a full-time, partner manager, we had a one-to-many kind of partner account manager team that could go and handle them. And that just solves so many problems because often, you just talked about trust, you talked about working well together. It's all about human relationships. So our PSA team would be able to connect them, and getting that connection started off on a solid footing, made the world of difference to get that. So I don't know that we had any super special, magic on that one, but it was getting the relationship in there early, reminding everyone that you're on the same page, reminding the seller they weren't going to get any less by working with the partner, and then, letting the relationship foster from there.
So also on the topic of communication, you'd mentioned earlier about the Slack channel for being able to get questions answered, right away. Are there any other strategies, or did you kind of bake this into kind of your policies that you've put together to really kind of promote communication and really encourage collaboration?
Well, I think that if you've got a mantra of making it easier and we're all trying to get to the same goals, you start building in ways to make it easier for the sellers. So another way that ticked off a bunch of boxes is we had in the sales organization partner development reps, something we didn't really have too many of when I got there. But over time, we were able to build out a role that was very similar to a sales development rep, but they would focus on, one or two or three bigger partners, and they would kind of, ping them for deals and make relationships and find it on a one-to-many basis. Whereas an SDR was talking to 100 customers in a month, that partner development rep would talk to 3 partners about 100 customers in the month, right? Mm-hmm. The nice thing about making things easier, though, was we took that opportunity to say, hey, you're handing this off to the AE anyway. Do you think you could just give them a little bit of an extra guiding, helping hand on doing that partner deal? Ask them if they've done one before. Ask them if they need any help. And that made a world of difference. So that was another technique to just make it easier for the sellers to do partner deals. When, again, DocuSign was becoming a big company, especially over the pandemic. And there was lots and lots I saw it every time I went to Seattle with a new cohort of new employees, and they were mostly sales employees. A lot of them didn't have the background. So that was another way to get those partner development reps. Yes, their main job was getting new leads, but as they handed them off, they could do a little bit of hand holding, and that went a long way. So that was another really good idea.
So that makes me think, I wonder is there a way, and I'm not sure if this is something that you have done in the past, but is there a way to measure the success of collaboration between the direct team and the partner team? They say that you can't manage something if you can't measure it, but is there a way to manage that, to kind of measure that collaboration between those two teams?
That's a really good question. And I do agree you want to measure as much as you can. I suppose the most obvious answer is, am I hearing about it? Am I hearing problems? Am I hearing issues? Are we hearing more compliments and comments? So I guess that's the ad hoc way of measuring it, is sort of, what am I hearing out there? I do think that's another key element to all of this is, if you're in the partner org and you're in the programs team and you're trying to help any of this, go track down some sellers, get some time with them, go buy them a coffee, virtual coffee, and just learn what their life is like. Because when you know more about them, you can create processes, policies, instruction guides that help them more. I think that you should be able to measure the downloads of the instruction guides you've given to them. Are they getting used? Are they getting read? So you could measure things like that. But I'm also a fan of just getting that anecdotal evidence to say, hey, a sales rep needed to know how to work with a partner. They downloaded the guide. They went to the Slack channel. They went to the PDR, and it solved their problem, and that was great. So I loved hearing those stories. But I like where you're going with that. I don't think we did it well enough.
And it's a metric. It's a metric that doesn't have, a box to check. But I think that, those types of things, looking at how much interaction with the enablement materials, how many times did they hit the Slack channel to, answer questions, that probably gives you at least a trend analysis to see, are you answering more questions?
There's a sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs when you're building these things, right? Like if we don't have any kind of program for partners, you start there. If we don't have any kind of good way to enable sellers, we got to get to that. I'd say we didn't quite make it to the top, which I would say was the measurement, the metrics, the how are we doing on that. And so sometimes there was just so much to get done. We had to get on to the next problem and start again with the hierarchy of needs. But I think you're bang on with your comments, Paul, that you've got to measure all these things if you can. And you're right, there's ways to do it, for sure.
Perfect. So as we start to wrap up, what do you think the most important bit of advice that you can share with vendors that are trying to steer clear of this kind of misalignment between their direct sales and their partner sales team?
I think it's helpful to have a team on the partner side like I had. It's not quite operations. It's not pure strategy. It's someone thinking about how the operating system of the partner business works internally and externally. So having someone focused on it and thinking about it, number one is then you have the people to go and work on this. And I'd say number two is, go and talk to everyone and just try to understand the situation. The number of times I've heard of companies trying to implement something, and I kind of dig into that. Well, why are you doing that? Well, we think it's the right thing to do. Did you go and talk to, the seller? And sometimes it seems scary. No, go have a coffee with them. Find out what's going on in their world. And once you know a little bit more about 3 or 4 or 5 times they tried working with partners, it was too difficult. Why? Oh, we didn't know how to do it. Oh, okay. You start to find all the points of friction and you just start knocking them off one by one. But sometimes it's just a just do it thing. Just go listen. What are the points of friction and start knocking them off one by one. Some are going to give you bigger wins than others, like comp neutrality. But the Slack channel, that was an easy one. We realized they had questions. They didn't know who to go to. Okay, there you go. Slack channel solves a lot of them. So just start knocking them off one by one, and you'll make it a lot more aligned.
Just do it. That is sage advice. All right, Darren. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to the Ultimate Channel Sales Podcast. Please don't forget to join us next time. For more information, please visit channelsalespodcast.com. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to our podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode today, please leave us a 5-star rating. From the Apple Podcast app, just select our show, scroll down to the rating and reviews section, and click Write Review. And don't forget to share with your friends or professional network anyone who'd enjoy it. See you next time on the Ultimate Channel Sales Podcast.